to commence this evening with the recitation of the Quran. Salawat.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الرحمن علم القرآن خلق الإنسان علمه البيان الشمس والقمر بحسبان والنجم والشجر يسجدان والسماء رفعها ووضع الميزان ألا تطغوا في الميزان وأقيموا الوزن بالقسط ولا تخسروا الميزان والأرض وضعها للأنام فيها فاكهة والنخل ذات الأكمام والحب ذو العصف والريحان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان خلق الإنسان من صلصال كالفخار وخلق الجن من مارج من نار فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلى على محمد وآل محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
Can we please have another loud salawat for Brother Bashir?
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
It's very important that we encourage our young generation because they are the future for our community. The future to progress our beautiful religion and to represent the Ahl Bayt alayhi salam. I welcome you all here tonight at the Salam Center. The Salam Family Outreach Center is an initiative of the Mosque in the Valley Foundation, a growing and hopefully stable organization that is promoting love, peace and diversity. We want to be able to show our brothers in humanity the kind of Muslims that follow the Ahl Bayt alayhi salam, that they are the best of mankind. The Ahl Bayt for 1500 years has been with the Shia in commemorations in these majlises, where we remember them not just for the tragedy that befell them or the hardships that they endured, but for the example that they left for us. Their personalities are unlike any of humanity today. The leadership qualities that they had, as well as the compassion, kindness, and love that they had for all of humanity, is something that we can only dream of as qualities to have as we can have for ourselves. I ask us all, as followers of these beautiful people, to continue to grow together with this type of attitude of compassion, acceptance, tolerance, unity, and love. The love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala should be a driving force for us to be able to unite, whether we are from the East, the West, it shouldn't matter. We all here have the same love for the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam, and this should be the uniting love that we have for each other as brothers and sisters in Islam. Tonight, we have been very blessed to have such a role model in our community from a very beautiful place that we all long to go to in Najaf, Iraq, that I was very fortunate to visit. We have with us Sayyid Hossein al Qazwini, who has given his time for us to inspire us and to help us to learn together and to understand the life of Sayyidah Fatima alayhi salam. I thank him and I thank everyone that is here with us tonight, and I ask you to make him feel welcomed with 3 loud salawats.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، بارئ الخلائق أجمعين، باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين، ثم الصلاة والسلام على خير خلقه العبد المؤيد والرسول المسدد، حبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد
وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين وصحابته المنتجبين. صلى الله عليك يا أبا عبد الله، صلى الله عليك يا سيدي ويا مولاي يا ابن رسول الله، يا رحمة الله الواسعة ويا باب نجاة الأمة ويا عبرة كل مؤمن ومؤمنة، يا ليتنا كنا معكم سادتي فنفوز فوزا عظيما. حديث الدار ذو شجون مما جنت به يد الخؤون أيهجم العدا على بيت الهدى ومهبط الوحي ومنتدى الندى أتضرم النار بباب دارها وآية النور على منارها إن روضة تلك الأضلع الزكية رزية ما مثلها رزية ومن نبوع الدم من ثدييها يعرف عظم ما جرى عليها وجاوزوا الحد بلطم الخدي شلت يد الطغيان والتعدي الباب والجدار والدماء شهود صدق ما له خفاء لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل لا أسألكم عليه أجرا إلا المودة في القربى صلوا على محمد وآل محمد
اللهم صل على محمد.
A second for the love of Imams Al-Hassan and Hossein. A third for the love of Fatima al-Zahra with your loudest voices. There was a father who continuously pressured his son to get married and find a wife. Like many of the fathers here tonight who have teenage sons and who continuously pressure them to get married. He would tell him that I'd like to see your wedding. Perhaps I will die without seeing your wedding, without seeing your children. You have to get married immediately. After so much pressure, the son went out and found a wife. He came and he told his father, he said, my dear father, after all that pressure that you put on me for finding a wife, I finally found a wife. He said, that's great, this is great news. How about you bring her, let's meet her. The young man, he goes and he brings this future wife to be for his father to see. As soon as the father lays eyes on this young lady, he falls in love with her. The father falls in love with the young lady. He tells him, my dear son, what is the rush of getting married? Why are you in a hurry to get married? He told him, did you forget the pressure? Did you forget the reason why I found this young lady? It's pressure from you. You told me to get married. He said, yeah, you know, people, we say things that we don't really mean. I think you should forget about this young lady and let her marry someone else. And you're still young, you have a lot of time ahead of you. He said, well, who should she marry? He said, yours truly. This young lady needs a man to take care of her, not a young boy like you. Of course, this young man who was very upset from his father, because his father was the one who pressured him to find a wife, was now wanting the wife for himself. He decided to go to the local courts and go and complain to the judge at the local court against his father, sue his father. He went to the judge and he said, Your Honor, have you seen a father that pressures his son to find a wife, and now that he's found a wife, the father wants her for himself? He said, the judge said, this is ridiculous. What kind of father is this? He said, yes, this father is my father. He pressured me to get married, and now that I found a young lady, he wants her for himself. He said, well, bring your father, and in order for me to pass a judgment, I have to see the young lady as well. The father comes to court. The young lady comes. As soon as the judge lays eyes on the young lady, he falls in love with her. He says, you know what? This is ridiculous. A father arguing with his son, a son arguing with his father over a girl. The best solution is neither of you marry her. Let her marry someone else. Who? Yours truly. I will marry her. He said this young lady deserves for a judge, for someone learned, to marry her and take care of her. Not foolish men like you, a father and son, who want to argue. The father and son, they decide to go to the king and complain against this corrupt judge. They go to the king's palace, they enter upon the king and they tell him, Your Royal Highness, what kind of corrupt judges have you appointed in your country? Judges were supposed to fix people's problems, yet instead they increase people's problems. He said, what judge? They told him, so-and-so. What is the problem? They tell him the story. He says, in order for me to fix the problem, I have to see this young lady. So they bring the young lady to the royal palace, and you know the drill. As soon as he he sets his eyes on the young lady, he falls in love. And he says, none of you will marry her. This young lady deserves to marry the king, deserves to enter the royal palace. She deserves for the king to take care of her, not foolish men like you. All of a sudden, that poor young man who went out and found this lady, the original guy, he couldn't take it any longer. He throws a punch at the king. The king throws a punch at the judge, and they all start fighting. The father with the son, with the judge, with the king. If you can imagine a foursome fight between these four men. While these four foolish men are fighting, the young lady leaves the palace. She starts running. When they see her running, they start running after her. All four of them start running after her. She goes in the middle of a forest, they go in the middle of the forest after her. She runs, they run. She goes in the middle of trees, and they go in the middle of trees. All of a sudden, she disappears. They start looking left, right, they can't find her. All of a sudden, these four men, while running in the middle of the forest, they fall in a ditch, in a trench, in a hole in the middle of the ground. They fall. When they fall, the young lady comes and she stands over this ditch, and she looks at them and she starts laughing. And she says, you foolish men, do you know who I am? She tells them, do you know who I am? You think that I'm a good-looking young lady, but no, I'm something else. I am this dunya. And you are the foolish seekers of this dunya. You fight over me. Father fights with his son. Son fights with his father. Daughter fights with her mother. Mother fights with her daughter. Brothers fight. All because of me. And at the end, no one reaches me. No one can have me. The end result is this. This 6 feet ditch or trench or hole or grave under the ground. Who has me? No one has me. My dear brothers and sisters, this story is not a story of a young man, poor young man who couldn't marry the love of his life. Nor the story of a father or a corrupt judge or an oppressive king. No. The story is my story, and your story, and your story, and the story of everyone in this room. The story of 6 billion people on the face of this earth. We spend our whole lives trying to get some of this dunya, just a little bit of this dunya. We fight with our family members, with our friends, with our community members, with our neighbors, just because of some dunya. And the end result is that we die without getting any of this dunya and not knowing what our akhira is. We didn't get dunya. This is another story. But what is our akhira? Where will they put us in the next life? We don't know. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I came to you from Iraq. Yesterday I was in Iraq. If you go to Iraq now, you will see posters everywhere, starting from the north all the way down to the south. Posters and pictures of people everywhere, and I wish they were good looking. Throughout the entire country, you will see their posters. Some of them are big, some of them are small, with their names. For what? For what reason? For elections. They're spending millions of dollars on these posters that get trashed, that people come and rip them, people throw oil on them, people do all kinds of things to them. They're spending millions of dollars on these posters, while there's millions of poor people in Iraq. According to some reports, there are 5 million orphans and widows in Iraq only. 2 million widows and 3 million orphans in Iraq. There's 5 million orphans and widows that are mostly poor, and you have people that are spending millions of dollars for advertisements for elections. Isn't this all for dunya? Isn't this just about dunya? Fight for power, fight for money, fight for positions, fighting for pieces of land, fighting for bodyguards and entourages and SUVs. This is all for dunya. This is all about dunya. And at the end result, no one gets dunya. No one gets to where he wants to get. What is the benefit of all this? I know 2 brothers in the city of Karbala. They're both in their 80s. They're both from a respected family. In fact, they're both Sada. They're both from the lineage of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They're not scholars, but they're both from the lineage of Rasulullah. For the past 20 years, they have not spoken to each other because of a piece of land of 500 meters. Because of 500 meters. This brother doesn't speak to this brother, and this brother doesn't speak to that. Because of 500 meters. It's all because of dunya. This is all for dunya. If we stop and think that from the moment that we wake up till the moment that we sleep, all we think about is this dunya. Do we ever think about the akhirah? Do we ever think about the next life waiting for us? Do we ever remember that this life will come to an end? Sooner or later, whether we like it or we don't. Sooner or later, we will die. No matter how long you want to live, no matter how much you want to remain young, at the end of the day, Azrael will come and he will take us. I remember I was watching TV once, and I saw a report on cosmetic surgery and how much people spend on cosmetic surgery, and cosmetic surgeons, how much millions they make from these surgeries. I remember they made an interview with a 70-year-old lady, who was addicted to cosmetic surgery. She's made surgery to God knows what. Her nose, her lips, her eyes, her face, everything. She's 70 years old, but she made herself look 17. But I swear to God, she's still ugly. This lady thinks that if she spends a couple of dollars and she makes herself look young, she can cheat death. When Azrael comes to her, she's going to say, I'm 17 years old, or I look 17 years old. No matter how much we try to make ourselves look young, we can't cheat death. We can't cheat Azrael, we can't cheat the angel of death. We all have to leave, sooner or later. All of us have to leave. Even the best of us. Even prophets. Prophet Sulaiman alayhi salam was standing on his porch looking at the jinn building a castle for him. Building a mansion. He was laying on his king. Azrael comes to him. He tells him, did you come as a visitor or did you come to take my life? He said, no, I came to take your life. He said, well, why didn't you send me a warning? Why didn't you give me a message? Why didn't you send me an email or anything? Give me a warning that you were going to come. He said, yes, Sulaiman, we did. We did send you a warning. Remember the first gray hair in your beard? That was the first warning about death. That was the first warning. He said, okay, if you're going to take my life, at least give me a chance. Let me go and say farewell to my family members, my children, my wives. He said, I'm sorry. Time is up and you have to leave now. Right now, this minute. He said, okay. Well, at least give me a chance. Let me lie on my bed. Don't take my life while I'm standing. Let me lie on my bed. He said, no. I will take your life while you're standing. And he took his life while he was standing. This is Sulaiman. He remained kneeling on his cane. He remained kneeling for up to a year. And the poor jinn, they kept on working 24-hour shifts, thinking that Sulaiman is watching over them. They couldn't take breaks because they thought Sulaiman was watching over them. Until insects, they came and they started eating the cane of Sulaiman. He fell. They realized that he's been dead for over a year. Even the best of us, when Azrael comes to them, they don't get overtime. Else, they have to leave. Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam was once asked that some people, when they die with their eyes closed. And some people, when they die with their eyes open. Why is that? He said the ones that died with their eyes closed, they wanted to open their eyes, but they didn't get a chance. How long does that take? How long does it take for you to shut your eyes and open them? And those that died with their eyes open, they wanted to shut their eyes, Azrael didn't give them a chance. This is it. When Azrael comes, he comes to take our lives and he goes. Don't think he's going to ask for permission. He's going to come and tell you, here, sign this paper before I take your life. No, none of this. He comes and he takes it and he goes. Prophet Nuh alayhi salam. Prophet Nuh lived, he was one of the oldest living prophets. He lived over 1,000 years. The Quran says that Nuh lived with his tribe for how long? 950 years. فَلَبِثَ فِي قَوْمِهِ أَلْفَ سَنَةٍ إِلَّا 50 عَامًا. Only with his tribe, he lived 950 years. Historians tell us that he lived longer than that. When he was about to die, Jibreel comes to him. He tells him, Ya Nuh, describe your life. What did you think of this life? He said, this life. Nuh lived for over 1,000 years. He said, this life to me was like a room with 2 doors. I came in one door and I left out the other. This was my life. Now if Nuh, who lived over 1,000 years, says this, what should I say? What should you say? And we don't even know how long we will live. 50 years, 60 years, 70 years, 80 years. I don't know. In a hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam states that the average life of the people in my ummah, in my nation, is 60 years. 60 years. If you've lived over 60 years, this is overtime. This is extra. You should thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for giving me these extra years. The average age is 60 from the nation of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Thus, my dear brothers and sisters, we all know this. We all know this, but sometimes we forget. We human beings, we forget. Especially we forget the things that we don't like. We tend to block it. Our mind, it represses some things that we don't like. I'm sure that perhaps you've had painful memories, painful experiences in the past during your childhood. But you don't remember it that often. Why? Because your mind, it represses bad memories. So that you can live. So that you can live a normal life. If a human being wants to remember bad things every day, he'll die. We human beings, we block the fact that we will die. We forget. We block the fact that there's a grave waiting for us. And there's another life waiting for us. And there are 2 angels that will come to us in our graves and ask us questions. We block that. We forget about it. That's why we have to remember all the time. Remind ourselves. Remind ourselves that this life is not the end. There's another life waiting for us. And before you know it, this life will expire and we'll have to go. But the question is, how do we prepare ourselves for the next life? This is an important point. This is an important question. Are we ready for the next life? Have we prepared ourselves for the next life? Or no? Imam al-Hassan al-Mujtaba alayhi afdal salatu wassalam, he tells his companion Junada, Imam al-Hassan was on his deathbed. He was ill, he was lying on his deathbed. His companion Junada comes to him and he says, Avni ya Rasulullah. Give me advice and admonish me. Advise me. And Imam begins giving him words of advice. استعد لسفرك وحصل زادك قبل حلول أجلك واعلم أنك تطلب الدنيا والموت يطلبك. We're living in a circle. He says, know that you will always be in pursuit of this life, of this dunya, but there's something else that's in your pursuit, that's chasing you. What is it? Death. وَاعْلَمْ أَنَّكَ تَطْلُبُ الدُّنْيَا وَالْمَوْتُ يَطْلُبُكَ. We're running after dunya, but there's something else running after us, and that's death. It's running after us. And in this circle, in this chase, in this pursuit, there's a winner and there's a loser. There's a definite loser, and that's us. We'll never gain dunya. No matter how much we try, dunya is not for us. And there's a definite winner, and that's death. Death will definitely catch on to us. Definitely catch on to us. So what's the benefit of running after something that we can't even reach? You want to reach a good position, it's not in your reach. And what good is that position even if you reach it? What good is that position? What good is it if you owned all the wealth in this life, if it doesn't help you in the next life? What good is it? If you were the richest millionaire in your country. What good is it? The important thing is, will it help you in the next life? Will it benefit you over there? If it doesn't benefit you over there, it's a waste. The important thing is to look for the next life, to benefit ourselves in the next life. One day, Harun al-Rashid was walking in the streets of Baghdad. He saw a beggar sitting on the street, holding his hand begging. Harun started mocking this poor person. He started making fun of him. He told him, "Ma azhadak. You look very simple life. You're being very humble, sitting out on the street." He's making fun of him. "You're very humble." The man looked to Harun, he raised his head, he said, "Yes. لكن أنت أزهد مني. But you're humbler than I am. If I'm humble, you're also humble. In fact, you're even more humble than I am." Harun started laughing. He said, "Did you forget who I am? I'm Harun al-Rashid. You're a poor beggar sitting on the street begging. I'm Harun. Did you forget who I am?" This Harun al-Rashid would speak to the clouds. This is how arrogant he was. Harun al-Rashid was a king, was an emperor. His empire was from Morocco, from China, from the east, all the way to Morocco in the west. This is huge. Harun al-Rashid would speak to the clouds. He would say, "Sharraqi and gharribi fala tamtarina illa ala mulki." He would speak to the clouds. He would say, "Go east, go west. Wherever you go, if you reign, you will reign on my empire. You will reign on my kingdom." This man tells him, "Ya Harun, anta azhadu minni. You are humbler than I am." He said, "How?" He said, "I am humble towards this life. If I am humble, I'm towards this life. I don't own any house, no cars, no bodyguards, nothing in this life. But you are humble towards the next life. If you own so much in this life, what do you own in the next life? How many assets, how many estates, how many homes do you have over there? Nothing. Over there you don't own anything." One day this same Harun al-Rashid had an advisor. He told him, "Give me a piece of advice." It's as if Harun al-Rashid would actually pay attention to this advice. The man told him, "Okay, I'll give you a piece of advice." He told him, "Ya Harun, pretend that one day you went out in the desert hunting," because he would always go out hunting with his bodyguards. This was a custom. This was very customary for the kings and emperors, to go out in the middle of the desert to hunt. He said, "Imagine yourself, you went out in the middle of the desert to hunt, and you got lost. Your bodyguards abandoned you. You got lost in the middle of the desert. There's no one with you. And it's very hot, the sun, the scorching sun is hitting you, and you become thirsty. You get so thirsty that you're about to die. All of a sudden, you see someone in the middle of the desert with a cup of water. He tells you, "I will give you this cup of water, but what will you give me? How much will you give me for this cup of water?" "Ya Harun, how much would you give him for this cup of water?" Harun puts his head down. He raises his head. He said, "I will give him half of my kingdom. Half of my kingdom I will give him to get this cup of water." He said, "Okay." Imagine that you drank this cup of water, and then after a while, we human beings, when we drink, what do? After a while, and excuse me for this, but there's a point. You had to urinate. But all of a sudden you developed some sort of illness that you couldn't urinate. You see someone in the desert that tells you, "I'm a doctor, I can give you a medicine that will allow you to urinate." Because if you don't urinate for 2-3 days, what happens? You die. So someone comes and tells you, "I'll give you a medicine to allow you to urinate." How much will you give him? Harun smiles and he said, "I will give him the other half of my kingdom." He said, "Ya Harun, Basically, you will give your entire kingdom to urinate once. To urinate just once. Is it worth it? Is this kingdom worth it? Harun, I was telling some brothers today, that Harun would tell his son, Al-Ma'mun, because one day, Al-Imam Musa ibn Ja'far came to the house of Harun. Harun respected him a lot. He respected Al-Imam Musa ibn Ja'far. He sat him in his seat. He gave him money. He gave him wealth. He kissed him on his forehead. He embraced him on his forehead. He gave him camels. He respected him a lot. And then Imam Musa ibn Ja'far left. Al-Ma'mun was a child. He came and he asked his father. He told him, "My dear father, who is this person?" He told him, "This person, هذا حجة الله في الأرض." This is the representative of Allah on this earth. Al-Ma'mun, he said, "But I thought you're Hujjatullah. I thought you're the representative. I thought you're the Khalifa." He said, "Yes, I'm the apparent Khalifa. But this guy is the real Khalifa." He said, "Then why don't you give him your Khilafah? Why don't you give him your seat, your throne?" Harun said his famous saying. He told him, "Ya bunay, al-mulku aqim. Law naza'tani fih, ladarabtu alladhi fihi 'ilmak." He said, "This is power, my dear son. This is kingdom. This is kingship. If you, my own son, if you try to take the seat from me, if you fight me for this throne, I'll cut off your head. And you're my son." This is dunya. This is what dunya does. This is what love of dunya does. It gets a father to fight his son for power. It gets a son to fight his father for power. This Amir of Qatar, everyone knows him. The guy that looks like an elephant. Do you know what he did to his father? And I assure you that the same thing will happen to him from his own son. What did he do to his father? He conspired against his father. He kicked him out, and he came to power. This Amir of Qatar right now, Hamad. And I assure you that the same thing his son will do to him. All because of dunya. All because of power. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Bahlul, I'm sure all of you know Bahlul. Bahlul, one day he came and he sat on the throne of Harun al-Rashid. Harun came and he saw Bahlul sitting on his throne. He told him, "Come down." He said, "No." He told him, "Bahlul, come down. Do you know what will happen to you?" Bahlul refused. Harun al-Rashid looked at his bodyguards. He said, "Take him and give him a good beating." They took Bahlul and they beat him. Bahlul came back to Harun al-Rashid laughing. He told him, "You should be crying. Why are you laughing? They just beat you up. Instead of crying, you're laughing?" He said, "Yes." Told him why. He said, "Because I sat on a seat that doesn't belong to me. Just for 1 hour, they gave me this beating. I'm wondering how much they're going to beat you up for sitting on a seat that doesn't belong to you." Why are we here tonight, my dear brothers and sisters? Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. We are here to commemorate a lady that abandoned this dunya, that wasn't fooled by the pleasures of this dunya. Someone who her entire cause in life, her entire philosophy, her entire mission was not for this life, it was for the Akhira. When we commemorate a lady like سيدة نساء العالمين السيدة فاطمة الزهراء صلوات الله وسلامه عليها, we're commemorating a lady that lived for the Akhira, not for this dunya. Not just Fatima al-Zahra, all of the Ahlul Bayt. Look at the lives of the Ahlul Bayt. Which one of them lived for this dunya? Which one of them fought for this dunya, worked for this dunya? It was all for the Akhira. Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, Dharar ibn Dhamara was one of the companions of Amir al-Mu'mineen. One day he was a guest of Muawiyah. Muawiyah tells him, Ya Dharar, sifli aliyan. Describe to me how your master Ali ibn Abi Talib was. To make a long story short, Dharar says, Wallah, laqad ra'aytuhu. Wallahi ya Muawiyah, laqad ra'aytuhu fi ba'd mawaqifih. وقد أرخى الليل سدوله وقد غارت نجومه وهو واقف في محرابه. Says Muawiyah, one night I caught Ali ibn Abi Talib in the middle of the night, standing in his mihrab, when all eyes were shut, when everyone else was asleep. When people were asleep, I saw Ali ibn Abi Talib standing in his mihrab. يتململ تململ السليم. He was shaking as if bitten by a snake. وَيَبْكِي بُكَاءَ الْوَالِهِ الْحَزِينِ. He was crying as if he's lost a loved one. وَهُوَ يَقُولُ يَا دُنْيَا غُرِّ اللَّيْلِ. And he would say, oh dunya, go fool someone else, not Ali ibn Abi Talib. You have no power over Ali ibn Abi Talib. Go and fool others. Ahlul Bayt, we're not fooled by this dunya. I am fooled with this dunya. We are fooled with this dunya. But not the Ahlul Bayt. Not Fatima al-Zahra, salawatullahi wa sallam alayhi. Fatima al-Zahra was a role model, my dear brothers and sisters. This is why we gather annually and we remember her. Some say, why do we come and mention the story of Fatima al-Zahra and her martyrdom and stir trouble in our community? After all, this is history. It's a historic event. Why come and dig into history and mention old stories and mention history? For what use? The story of Fatima al-Zahra was a historic event. Why mention it? Why cause division? The answer is very clear, my dear brothers and sisters. Our aim is not to stir trouble or cause division in our community or in our centers, no. But there's a purpose. There's a philosophy behind mentioning Fatima al-Zahra and commemorating Fatima every year. And not just once every year, but 3 times every year. Because there are 3 narrations about the martyrdom of Fatima al-Zahra. One narration says that she died 40 days after the death of Fatima al-Zahra. That is why on the 40th, people commemorate Fatima. Another narration says she died 75 days after the death of Rasulullah. And one narration says she died 95 days, and we are commemorating the 95th. We're commemorating the 3rd narration. On Sunday, which will be the 3rd of Jamadi al-Akhira, according to a 3rd narration, it is the martyrdom of Fatima al-Zahra, salawatullahi wa sallam alayhi. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. First of all, Fatima al-Zahra was a role model. When we look at her life, we will see that she was the best daughter that a father can have. The best daughter. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi, he would come back home, his body shedding blood because Quraysh would stone him, they would abuse him, they would beat him. He would come home, every body part of his would be bleeding. He would come to the house of Fatima al-Zahra. Fatima al-Zahra would take care of him. She would heal his wounds. She would take care of him like a caring mother. That is why he said about her, Fatima tu ummu abiha. Fatima is the mother of her father. What a beautiful expression. What a beautiful expression. That Fatima al-Zahra was the mother of her father. When Fatima al-Zahra would come in a session that Rasulullah was in, narrations say, Sunni narrations, not just Shia. Sunni narrations say that Rasulullah would stand, he would grab Fatima, he would embrace her, and he would seat her in his own seat. He would stand out of respect for Fatima al-Zahra. The best daughter that a father can have, no doubt about this. A role model for all daughters and sons. Fatima Zahra was also the best wife a husband could have. The best wife. Not once did she raise her voice to Amir al-Mu'mineen. Not once did she come and complain to Amir al-Mu'mineen. Not once did she come and burden Amir al-Mu'mineen with too much demands. In fact, Amir al-Mu'mineen would say that if I had all sorts of burdens on me, on my shoulders, I would come back home, I would look at Fatima Zahra, one glance to her face would make me forget all of my troubles and agonies and problems. This is a role model for all wives. The best wife that a husband could have was Amir al-Mu'mineen. Was Fatima Zahra to Amir al-Mu'mineen. That is why many years after her death, this is in Nahj al-Balagha. Open Nahj al-Balagha and read this. Many years after her death, right before the death of Amir al-Mu'mineen, Amir al-Mu'mineen lived 30 years after the death of Fatima Zahra. Amir al-Mu'mineen's beard was all white. Someone comes to him and he tells Amir al-Mu'mineen to dye his beard. To dye his beard black or whatever. Amir al-Mu'mineen said, no, I will not dye my beard. They asked him why. He said, La zilna fi azab. We are still in pain. We are still in mourning. 30 years after her death, Amir al-Mu'mineen was still mourning Fatima Zahra. He was still sad over Fatima Zahra. He would refuse to dye his beard. The ideal wife. And the ideal mother. The ideal mother was Fatima Zahra. She would send her sons Al-Hassan and Hussein to the masjid. She would tell them, go and listen to your grandfather Rasulullah. Listen to him carefully. And then when they would come back home, she would say, give me a report of what you learned from your grandfather Rasulullah. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. She would wake up in the middle of the night for Salatul Layl, and she would wake up her children, Al-Hassan and Hussein. They were children. They were 4 or 5 years old. Yet she would wake them up for Salatul Layl to prepare them to be in the habit of waking up in the middle of the night for Salatul Layl. Imam al-Hasan says that one day I woke up in the middle of the night. I saw my mother Fatima standing in her mihrab, praying, crying, raising her hands and worshipping, and praying for her friends and family members. But she didn't pray for herself. She didn't even mention her name. She would pray for her neighbors and friends and family members. He said, after Salah, I came to her and I asked her, my mother Fatima, you prayed for everyone, but you didn't pray for yourself. She said, Na'am bunay. Al-jar thumma al-dar. Your neighbor always comes first. Your family and friends always come first before you. The ideal mother, the ideal daughter, the ideal wife, the ideal mother. Her whole life was exemplary for everyone. When Amir al-Mu'mineen came to propose to her, Amir al-Mu'mineen was very shy. He didn't even go and propose first. First, Abu Bakr went and proposed to Rasulullah for his daughter Fatima. Rasulullah refused. He said, Amruha fi as-sama, Amruha laysa biyadi. The permission has to come from Allah, not me. My daughter Fatima, Allah has to give permission, not me. Allah refused. Umar comes and proposes. Rasulullah refuses. He says, Amruha laysa biyadi, Amruha biyadillah. And then Umar and Abu Bakr, they came to Ali ibn Abi Talib. They told him, listen, when he came and proposed to Fatima, Rasulullah refused. You go and propose. He's definitely not going to reject you. You're his cousin and brother. Amir al-Mu'mineen went. Very respectful. Very shy. He went in and he didn't even raise his head. He didn't even say why he went. And nowadays you see young men when they go and they propose, first of all they're chewing gum. And they're playing with their iPhones. They're texting while they're there to propose, and he's playing with his phone. Have you heard of the young man who went and proposed while he was chewing gum? Let me tell you the story. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala alihi. A young man went and proposed to a father to marry his daughter while he was chewing gum. Now that's very, very stupid to do. The father was very insulted. He was very insulted. He looked at this young man. He told him, do you always have a habit of chewing gum in front of your elders? He saw that this is a bad habit for him to be chewing gum in front of his elders, let alone his future father-in-law. He said, no, actually, this gum, it's that kind of nicotine gum that doesn't allow you to crave cigarettes. So I said, oh my God. I thought chewing gum was bad. Now this young man seems to be smoking cigarettes. I told him, you smoke cigarettes? He said, well, I used to. He said, why? He said, well, you know how it is. When you want to stop doing drugs, you start smoking cigarettes. I told him, you used to do drugs? He said, well, yeah, when you're in prison, what do? You start doing drugs. I told him, you're in prison. He said, well, yeah, when you kill someone, they put you in jail. Told him, you killed someone? He said, yeah, I went and I proposed to a father. He refused, so I killed him. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Amir al-Mu'min goes into the house of Rasulullah. Very respectful, very shy. He puts his head down without even saying why I'm here. Rasulullah tells him, perhaps you are here to propose to my daughter Fatima al-Zahra. He said, Bala ya Rasulullah, indeed. Amir al-Mu'mineen goes to Fatima al-Zahra and he said that he tells her, your cousin Ali ibn Abi Talib is here to propose to you. What do you say? Of course, Fatima al-Zahra puts her head down. Out of shyness, she doesn't say anything. And I've also heard that young ladies nowadays, when they receive proposals, they start shouting, screaming, cartwheels, I don't know what they do out of happiness. Fatima al-Zahra puts her head down. She didn't say anything. That is when Rasulullah stated, Subhanallah, sukutuha Allah. That her silence is her acceptance. And Rasulullah set a law that if a young lady, they propose to her and she remains silent, that means she accepts out of shyness. Amir al-Mu'mineen marries her. That simple wedding, very simple wedding, that very simple dowry. Her dowry was 480 dirhams, which today is equivalent to $700. $700. Something very small. Which one of our sisters nowadays accepts to receive a dowry of $700? Which family accepts a dowry of $700? Many young men, they come and tell me that say we can't afford marriage because families, they want big dowries. They want huge dowries. I have a friend, a Sayyid. He said that a couple came to me in my office. They wanted to perform their nikah, their zawaj. So I was writing their nikah down. He said, I asked the husband, what is the dowry? He said, $1 million. I told him, $1 million? $1 million, you're offering the same lady $1 million? Are you buying her or are you marrying her? He said, no, I'm marrying her. So why are you giving $1 million? He said the father of the young lady got upset at me for trying to change his mind. He said, Sayyid, huwa kareem wa ihna nastahil. He's generous and we deserve it. Why are you trying to change his mind? Fatima al-Zahra, her dowry was 480 dirhams. A simple dowry. A simple wedding. a simple house, very simple furniture. This is a role model for all youth that want to get married and can't afford weddings. I tell the youth, I tell the young men, are you better than Ali ibn Abi Talib? And I tell the sisters, are you better than Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam? Look at their wedding, look at their dowry, look at her wedding dress. This was all an example for all of us. Of course, I don't have a clock in front of me, and this is a bad thing because I will keep on talking 2 hours, 3 hours without even knowing. What time is it? Okay. The Quran, I conclude with the verse that I started with. The Quran says, قُلْ لَا أَسْأَلُكُمْ عَلَيْهِ أَجْرًا إِلَّا الْمَوَدَّةَ فِي الْقُرْبَى. The Quran tells us, Allah tells Rasulullah, tell your people, tell your nation, that if you